Real estate is under siege.
Pandemic, economic shutdown, recession, depression, rioting, looting, rent control, political risk. Can anything else go wrong in commercial real estate? You decide.
Hi, this is Greg, and I'm here today to talk to you about commercial real estate and how it's completely under siege. Okay? There's been a confluence of events, as I'm sure most of you know, that have just conspired to really create really what can only be described as the perfect storm for commercial real estate. Okay, now I'm in the New York area, and I have been involved in real estate for over 25 years, both as an investor and also as a financier. So I am very close to the markets, and I'm seeing everything that's happening on the ground, and so I wanted to tell you guys about it and sort of give you a report. Okay, so first of all, as most of you know, the coronavirus and basically the pandemic that we've all been living through has been horrible, not only for real estate, but also for the economy in general, which has created massive business disruptions and bankruptcies of small businesses and large businesses, which are all tenants, as you might imagine, in commercial real estate, not only on the office side, but also on the retail side. And the retail sector has been battered for many, many years with the advent of online purchases and the online marketplace. Retail has been suffering for many, many years. This has really, in many cases, put the final stake in the heart of real estate and put a lot of pressure on landlords. Likewise, offices, most offices have been shut down. The weaker tenants have been basically put out of business or have been impacted tremendously. So the weaker tenants have not been able to pay rent. The stronger tenants, in some cases, both in retail and in office, are taking the downturn as an opportunity to get concessions from the landlords, which has put further pressure on landlords and their ability to meet their obligations, namely their operating expenses and their mortgage obligations. Clearly, this has also affected lenders, since lenders rely on indirectly the tenants to pay the operating expenses of their borrowers and ultimately their mortgage. A secondary effect of the shutdown has been the resulting recession and, dare I say, possibly depression, depending on how you look at it. That's a result from the government basically shutting down the entire economy. And if the impact on the tenants wasn't enough, and if the recession/depression wasn't enough, along comes protests, looting, and rioting. Okay? Wonderful. Now, as I said in the beginning, I'm from the New York area. I'm primarily looking at New York and the effect in New York, but it's important to understand that what's happening in New York, although it might be the worst example of what's happening for many, many reasons, the same thing is happening in virtually every major market, or as we say in real estate, every primary real estate market, meaning the major cities: Chicago, San Francisco, LA, Miami, Dallas, Houston, etc. Any major city has really been experiencing both the economic effects of the shutdown plus this rioting and looting as a result of the protest. So just focusing on New York for a second, I have many clients, because right now I'm primarily on the lending side. I have many clients in New York, and just think about if you owned a commercial building in either Manhattan or in Brooklyn, for example. I have a lot of clients in Brooklyn, which, you know, got tremendously hit by the shutdown. Many of these owners were midway or halfway through maybe a construction project where they were rehabbing a building, and construction was completely shut down. I mean, not for weeks, but for months. They weren't allowed by the city to do anything, okay? And then simultaneously, they get hit with their other holdings in the sense that, you know, most, if not all, of their commercial tenants just simply stop paying, okay? So you have the stopping of the construction, the lack of ability to finish projects. Meanwhile, you're incurring the operating costs, the taxes, the insurance, the debt service, and then simultaneously, most of your tenants stop paying, okay? Not a good situation, and providing, you know, massive liquidity problems all across the board. And again, this is not, I'm using New York as an example, but this is not just solely in New York. It's happening everywhere. Now, if all of this stuff wasn't bad enough, okay, if all of these negative forces hitting all at once wasn't bad enough, you have our friends in government making it even worse. As another negative effect that you see coming down the pike, particularly in New York, but it's the same in California and elsewhere, are these tenant advocacy groups, which are constantly attacking landlords, making tenant demands, and under the guise of, you know, protecting and representing the tenants, which, you know, on the surface seems like a laudable and positive thing to do. From the landlord's perspective, many of these accusations that are levied against them are completely unfounded and are very damaging, not only to the landlord's reputation, but also to his pocketbook, as these people go on, you know, rent strikes and all these other things. Now add to that, because tenant advocacy groups have been around forever, right? So that's nothing really new, but they have become increasingly aggressive in the last few years. But this has in turn affected the government officials, and I use those terms lightly because really they're basically ideologues that hate landlords and hate so-called wealthy people because they consider them in that evil 1% of people that should be scorned and hated, basically. And so there has been a rash in the last couple of years, and I'll use New York as an example, of these extremely punitive and counterproductive rent control regulations that have come down the pike, okay? In New York, for example, they limited the amount that a landlord can raise rents to very low percentages that don't even keep up with the operating costs. And then on top of that, they removed something called vacancy decontrol, which basically allowed landlords to make capital improvements in the property and in the specific units. In the case of multifamily, when the tenants vacated the property voluntarily, either through, you know, just leaving the property, or through a buyout, or involuntarily through an eviction, you could come in and basically renovate the apartment and invest additional monies and basically improve the building. And along a certain formula, you were allowed to raise rents until you got to a certain level. It varied, but call it $2,100 for a two-bedroom apartment. You got to a certain level, and then you were considered free market. This encouraged landlords to make improvements to the building and to keep up with both maintenance and capital improvements. But it was seen by tenant advocates and these liberal government officials and the city council as being deleterious to the market for lower cost rents, and has been pegged as the reason for why rents are so high in Manhattan, which is ridiculous, of course. What these rent regulations have really done under the law of unintended consequences, right? It's basically caused, number one, the value of the properties to go down precipitously, because rent stabilized properties, which have controls on how much the rent can go up every month, are now basically going to be rent stabilized forever. They're never going to be improved, or because there's no incentive to improve the buildings. And it's going to keep a ceiling on the rent so that the costs continue to go up, the rent doesn't go up as fast, so the margins are squeezed, and it's just causing untold distress in the New York market. I've heard stories where commercial multifamily properties have dropped as much as 30% since these draconian rent control laws have been put into place. A horrible example of unconstitutional property taking by government, reducing the value of property, and it doesn't even achieve the desired outcome. All it does is prevent landlords from investing in their buildings, and it's going to end up being bad for tenants. But of course, government, in its infinite wisdom, usually makes the wrong decision when it comes to issues like this. And while we're on the subject, I just have to say, de Blasio is the worst mayor ever elected to mayor of New York. Landlords absolutely hate him, but they deserve what they get because they were asleep at the switch, and they allowed politically this momentum, these ideas to gain momentum, and they didn't sufficiently fight these regulations at the city council level or at the Albany level. So they get what they deserve, okay? But I think over time, hopefully some of these things will be corrected. But let's not get too off into a tangent on that. The situation in commercial real estate is really dire right now, okay? The existing property owners, in many cases, are having liquidity problems. And just when you thought it couldn't get any worse with the coronavirus and the shutdown, along came the looting and the protests, which have basically, in the case of New York, has shut down New York for at least 10 days. And the looting has caused, untold, incalculable damage on both the commercial store owners and also the commercial real estate owners, because just when things were starting to come on commercially, things were starting to come back online, these looters came in and basically put everything back again, and basically didn't accomplish anything except destroying people's lives and making the economy that much worse. Okay, so that's the situation. I mean, it's not pleasant. I have been in real estate for a long time. I've seen a lot of downturns going back to the early 90s, after the housing crisis and the S&L crisis, and I lived through 9/11. I lived through 2008, which was horrible. This could be the worst commercial real estate downturn that we've ever seen. Okay, you probably have to go back to the Great Depression, but I'm not that old. I wasn't alive then. But the thing is, the situation is relatively dire. Many of the stronger players, as always, will weather the storm. Where does it all go from here? Hopefully things will settle down We got a really good jobs number today. The market rallied a huge amount. I don't know what it is now, but when I last looked, it was up almost, the Dow was up almost 1,000 points. It's good. It seems like we're seeing green shoots. It seems like the states that have been opening are coming back to life. And if we can stop the protests and the looting and get things back to normal, you'll probably see a pretty rapid improvement. Now, the only positive to all of this is that if you're interested in investing in real estate, if you're interested in getting involved either as an experienced investor or someone who is just starting out and thinking about it, I predict that over the next year, you'll see some of the best opportunities in commercial real estate that we've seen for some time. You'd have to go back to 2009, 2010 time period. So anyway, that's the update, guys. I wish it was better, but right now it's really dire. And if you got value out of this, please hit the like button, please subscribe, and I'm very interested in your comments. If you're involved in real estate, either as an experienced investor or somebody who's thinking of getting into it, please comment below, tell me what you think. And until next time, thank you guys, and I'll be coming out with some new videos on some other subjects. The subject of this channel, of course, is business and investment, all in the context of the digital age, and we'll be coming out with another video very soon.